Now from Capitol Hill is Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio, who sits on both the House Armed Services and Intelligence Committees, a rare combination. Congressman, good to have you back on the program. Are you going to do everything you can to block this deal, and what does that mean?
Well, absolutely. And let's start with the fact first that the president is bypassing the Constitution, and that if this is to be binding, it should be a treaty, and it should be put before the Senate for ratification, which the president is not doing because he knows this is a treaty would never be ratified. Secondly, we're doing a deal with a nation whose leadership routinely chants death to America, which automatically should have everyone be suspect of any type of a deal. But turning to the substance, the president today said that this deal is based on verification, but it's not. I've met with the head inspector of the Iranian task force of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the agency that's going to be charged with verifying this. And he made this point, which is very important. He said he's going to be given a ledger and asked to certify the custody and control of what's on the ledger. But he's not being asked to certify the ledger. He's not being asked to do inspections to ensure that there's not other centrifuges or there's other programs or there's other sites. He's only going to be asked to certify what has been declared. That's problematic, and also that Iran is going to be able to continue to pursue an ICBM program, which puts the United States at risk.
Congressman, you spoke of binding treaties a moment ago. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty is a binding treaty, and Iran is one of the original signatories of that. They signed that back in 1968. Since Iran's one of the original signers of that treaty, what exactly are your concerns? The treaty does say that nuclear power is to be used for peaceful purposes. You just don't trust the Iranians?
Well, absolutely, and certainly by what you just said in pointing that out, Mark, I mean, they clearly were violating that treaty that they signed. I mean, this is a regime that has no interest in signing treaties and abiding to them. They, continue to pursue both their, support of terrorist organizations, their destabilization of the Middle East, their threat to the United States and America, and certainly their threat to Israel.
But Congressman, as you were just pointing out about verifying, being able to verify what their nuclear assets are, and that being an unsatisfactory part of this deal, what can the U.S. do, though, short of an all-right, military offensive on this? What can they do to verify properly?
Well, I think what the administration has done is they've conceded far too early on a number of issues that are incredibly important. I mean, take ICBMs, for example. Iran's going to be permitted during this period to pursue ICBM technology that only has one purpose, and that's to reach the United States with nuclear weapons. No one has conventional ICBM weapons. This is clearly an intent on their part to reach weapons of mass destruction to the United States homeland. And secondly, on verification, if they're truly going to be a nation that is going to abandon their nuclear ambitions, they should abandon enrichment, and they should make certain that all of their sites are available, and they're not going to be. The IAEA is not going to be able to that Iran does not have other sites that are part of a weapons program.
Sir, is it your contention, because I was talking about this earlier here in the newsroom, and one of the things I remember was the negotiations, the Camp David Accords between Israel and the Palestinians. And I remember the late Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, he got a lot of flack when he went back home. He was asked why he made this deal, why he was willing to sit down with the Palestinians, and his quote was, because you don't make peace with your friends. Is it your contention then that we should not talk to people who we don't agree with? Is diplomacy, for all intents and purposes, not the way to go when you're dealing with a regime like Iran?
No, there's a difference, though, here in what your negotiations are and what you're trying to achieve. And the administration went into these negotiations ignoring the fact that this is a regime that chants death to America on a regular basis, actively practices taking down U.S. aircraft carriers, has its military configurations as a threat to its neighbors, and supports terrorist organizations. They've required no major change in shift of policy or even pursuit of military action on the part of Iran, other than these non-verifiable reductions that are in this deal. If this was truly Iran abandoning its nuclear ambitions, opening up all of its facilities, making itself available to the IAEA, who are the experts, and a truly verifiable deal, well, then that would be certainly worthy of pursuing. This deal is dangerous for America. It's dangerous for the Middle East. It'll result in an arms race throughout the Middle East, and it's certainly dangerous for Israel.
National Security Advisor Susan Rice on Twitter, I want to just read for you, Congressman, what she said about this deal. She said, Iran deal is what American leadership is all about. As the President of the United States has said, we have again brought about real and meaningful change for the better. You know, Republicans have consistently criticized the president for failing to demonstrate leadership throughout his 2 terms. Isn't this him finally demonstrating that with the Iranians?
You know, leadership is not having your staffers tweet that you're a leader. Leadership is actually delivering a substantive deal that makes your nation safer. This deal does not make our nation safer. It does not make the Middle East safer. And it certainly rewards Iran for, I believe, its support of terrorist organizations, its destabilization of the Middle East, and gives it a path to continue to threaten the United States.
Congressman, in about 30 seconds, you mentioned the Israeli component to this. Do you believe that Israel will act unilaterally vis-a-vis Iran?
I think that Israel should continue to protect itself, as any nation should. I think certainly the United States Congress is going to take action to try to protect this nation in imposing this deal. We certainly hope that the president, who's taking an action that's outside of the constitutional process, does not continue to try to bind this nation to a deal that's not good for national security and that certainly isn't good for our future.
Mike Turner, he's the Republican congressman from Ohio, a member of both the House Armed Services and Intelligence Committees. Congressman, it's a privilege to have you on the broadcast. Thanks for your time.